the Iowa football open spring practice over the weekend. We've seen glimpses along the way throughout the spring, some openings where you got to see bits and pieces of Hawkeye football and video from this media outlet or that media outlet, but not a ton, right? And this was kind of the big shebang, the final spring practice. And oh, by the way, the Kinnick Stadium doors, they're open. Come on down, everybody. Bring your mom, bring your dad, bring your family, and watch some Hawkeye football, a live open spring practice. So tons to react to, and let's start here. If you're wondering about the offense, probably like many in occasion, Chris, with Iowa football, a lot of the attention is, hey, where's the offense at? How do these new quarterbacks look? Well, Mark Gronowski, in case you missed it, if you were busy hanging out with your friends and family this weekend and you weren't dialed into the Iowa Open spring practice, don't fret. We got you covered here. Mark Gronowski was there. He was not suited up. He was not padded up. He wasn't, as Tim Lester said last week, he wasn't throwing the Nerf ball this time, though. He did throw the pigskin around a little bit before Iowa got out there with some 7-on-7 and some true good on good, but we didn't get a legitimate look at Mark Gronowski. He didn't take any of the scrimmage snaps in this final open practice for Iowa. So if you're wondering how Mark Gronowski looked, well, the injury prognosis, I guess, Chris, is maybe even further along than some would have thought at this point, but still not to the point to where he's out there taking live reps, even though the quarterback's obviously protected in a thing like this. He wasn't padded up doing the 7-on-7 or the 11-on-11 good on good. But we did see a little bit of Mark Gronowski. So I, Chris, categorize that as good news for Hawkeye fans.
Yeah, it's good that, he was there and present. I feel like even though he wasn't a participant, and even though we like to see him on the field and see what he can do, it's just good to see him there, see him in good spirits, seeing him throw around the pigskin and not the Nerf ball this time around, and showing that, he's progressing with his health. His shoulders getting there, and should be soon. We'll see him pretty soon. But it was a good opportunity, I guess, to look at the other quarterbacks because it's not just one; it's the whole quarterback room. And Jackson Stratton and Hank Brown, they show some really promising things. I was really impressed with Jackson Stratton. I feel like from what I saw, at least I was not there, but from what I saw in the clips that Elliot and Sean Bach and all others posted, Jackson Stratton seemed like he was making quick reads. It seemed like he was really studying film. He was just making quick reads. I thought he had some really good passes. Obviously, some slip-ups here and there. He's not perfect, but I was really impressed in that fact. I thought – and then I believe with Hank Brown, he's going to get more comfortable with the offense. Like, he's still only a couple months in, so he has some slip-ups. His reads could be a little faster from what I saw, but, I feel like I would have a different opinion if I was there to witness, everything. So just speaking from what I saw, I still have a lot of faith in Hank Brown. His dual threat ability is there. He's really quick in that aspect, though. So he'll pick up fine. But having Jackson Stratton here, someone who was here last year and is familiar with the offense, I feel like really benefits and coincides well with Hank Brown as the backups.
One of the scoring in the Iowa Open Spring practice broke down like this. You had a play action touchdown from Jackson Stratton to DJ. DJ, I'm gonna butcher your last name. Vonamy. I had it earlier today. I'll have to look up the pronunciation guy. DJ, I'll get it right before the show's over. I apologize, my friend. Caden Weegan, he had a touchdown on a toss on an end around. That I believe was also with Stratton out there under quarterback. Kamari Moulton had a 7-yard touchdown run in this open spring practice for the Hawkeyes, a 5-yard touchdown pass. This was a nice play from Stratton, a bad snap. He recovered, and then he still found Reese Vanderzee on the slant. That was a 5-yard touchdown strike. You mentioned it. Hank Brown, he had the quarterback option touchdown today or on Saturday. So that was good to see Hank Brown show a little bit of his dual threat capability for the Hawkeyes. A touchdown run. I thought, amongst the youngsters, Nathan McNeil in the running back room. I thought he did some nice things for Iowa. A touchdown grab, the final play actually of the 11-on-11 portion was Apollo Payne, a 14-yard deep out, and then he leapt into the end zone for a touchdown pass for Jimmy Sullivan to Apollo Payne. So a bunch of different guys, some offensive highlights along the way. I thought what you said, Chris, is right. I know that he's a walk-on guy, though at the end of last season, Stratton made some starts for you, and he took some big-time snaps for Iowa, and I thought handled himself pretty well for the Hawkeyes. I think he's got a chance just based on one open spring practice and with the understanding and the caveat that it's just that. It's one open spring practice for the Hawkeyes, and we don't get to see all of it, Chris, but we got to see this. And so from what we got to see of the quarterbacks, to me, he was the clear best quarterback out there. Jackson Stratton was largely operating with the ones out there. He looked like the guy that had been here since last June. He's the only quarterback for Iowa that's been around that long. It's a totally reconstructed quarterback room. You're still waiting on Gronowski to get healthy. We'll talk about this later in the show, but you added Wake Forest quarterback Jeremy Heklinski. So you haven't gotten a chance to integrate him just yet into the Hawkeyes quarterback room, but I thought Jackson Stratton was the clear best quarterback that we saw, though Hank Brown did some nice things. I thought Jimmy Sullivan at the end of the day, which this probably shouldn't be shocking either, Chris, that you're talking about a freshman quarterback at now the D1 level. And oh, by the way, he was, remember, an early enrollee. So as Tim Lester said last week, he should be attending his high school prom. And instead, he's taking part, Jimmy Sullivan is, in the Iowa Open spring practice. So I thought it took him a little while to settle in, but he did at the end of the day and fired some good balls as the day went along. But I think Jackson Stratton, is it crazy to say that I think he's got a chance to be this team's backup quarterback? I know that he's not listed there or wasn't when the initial spring depth chart came out. That would have been Brendan Sullivan as the 2, and Hank Brown would have been the 3. So by Brendan Sullivan exiting, at least based on the initial spring depth chart, that would tell you that Hank Brown is the backup quarterback. What I saw on Saturday tells me I think maybe that guy should be Jackson Stratton, at least today.
Yeah, and it's good that with all the turnover we've had, especially on offense, it's good to have that one quarterback that is coming back. Even though he wasn't a starter, he was pretty much the QB3 last year, but he's familiar with the offense. He knows what the offense is. He's able to bring in Mark Gronowski, bring in Hank Brown, and kind of get him caught up with the system. But then also when you need someone to step in, you got someone who's familiar with the system for not just a couple months. It's a year or two. And, it's one of those things where you watch that spring practice, you could see that he was putting in serious work in the offseason. He was focused, especially mentally. Like I said, just the quick decisions. He wasn't perfect by any means, but he was just like all the decisions seemed to be quick. He was watching a lot of film. That comes from film. And it's really impressive to see, him be a backup last year, kind of get thrown into the fire, do a solid job, and now he's come back seeming like a much better QB than he was last season. So although we brought in Hank Brown, probably everyone's thinking that he's going to be the backup. It seemed like Jackson Stratton, like you said, he might be that guy. And for whatever reason, if Mark Gronowski goes down, if he's not able to start the season, now you got Jackson Stratton. You can feel a little confident now, a little more confident than last season, knowing we got Jackson Stratton, we're going to be fine. And I will say that botch snap at the 5-yard line, I highlighted that play. That was a really good play by him. Like I said, just a quick decision, a little mess up. He picked that ball, threw it right to Reese Vanderzee, 6'4" target. You can't miss him. But, that was awesome. One guy for me on offense that I highlighted that you named and not mentioned was Dayton Howard. I thought he got a lot of snaps on offense, but he was just really involved. I saw a lot of clips with just him. He got one catch, maybe like a 15, 20-yard catch over somebody. I couldn't tell who the DB was, but that was a really impressive catch. He was hitting on a slant. Don't believe he scored a touchdown, but, our receiver room is pretty deep, and it seemed like from that practice, he's really fighting to be one of those top 3, and from what I've seen, he could provide that. So we'll see where he goes with that. And we have a lot of young guys. We'll see how that all comes together. But it's going to be very interesting to see where Jackson Stratton is on the depth chart come this season. Because right now he's giving Hank Brown a run for his money at the backup for sure.
Well, if he's your number 3, that's a pretty good situation to be in. And again, I think it's worth mentioning that kind of everything you break down here, you break it down with the caveat of, okay, it's one practice that we got to sit and watch, right? So this is not always a complete indication of what the coaching staff is seeing day in and day out. It certainly can be in some instances, and in others, maybe, Chris, that's not the case of what the Hawkeye coaching staff is seeing. But I thought Jackson Stratton was impressive.